shows up in this room.
All right,
Let's
so
see.
welcome John L., who's going to share his experience, strength, and hope.
Where do I start? Probably at the beginning, huh? How long do I got? Like 3 hours?
Yeah, something like that, a 3 hour.
Is that okay? Um, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Good.
So, hmm, well, I remember, so I've always said that alcohol is not a beverage to me, and I remember the first time I had a drink was when I was 10. I drank some of my dad's beer, and it was like it just went down and it exploded, and I finally felt better. Um, and then I remember like it was yesterday. And the thing is, when I was a kid, I was pretty dissociated the whole time, actually for most of my life, and so I don't remember much of my childhood. But I do remember that. I remember a lot of anger. Um, remember banging my head on the wall. I remember hitting the window, which was maybe a little dangerous, but there was always anger. And then in grade school and high school, some behavior bordering on self-harm, holding my foot on heat registers to see how long I could take it. Anything to keep me from feeling. And so then I was, we had a very Catholic family, so I started going to these retreats. I was at a Catholic grade school, a Catholic high school, and I started going to retreats, and it was mostly emotionalism, I think, and I had somewhere to go, and I didn't keep drinking after that first drink when I was 10. It also scared me pretty bad, and so I stayed away from it through high school, and I did these retreats instead, which is probably a really good thing. I don't know. So then when I was a senior, I said, well, I'm going to go into the seminary because little's good, more is better, make mom and dad happy. So I did. And I don't know, the summer before that, we went up to the Boundary Waters. I lived in Minnesota, and when we got out of there, well, all we brought with was oatmeal. It's like, that was kind of a rough trip. We got out of there and stopped for pizza as soon as we got out of there, and had a pitcher of beer, and that was really when it all started. I was 18, and I spent the rest of my drinking career trying to get back the feeling I had then. It really worked. I mean, it was just like when I was 10. It went down and exploded, and I felt better than I'd ever felt. I felt complete. And so after that, it was, just a matter of time before I found my next one. And, so then we went into, then the seminary started, and the first Friday night, all the monks came out of the monastery. They lined up a big table and all started playing poker and drinking, and the liquor cabinet opened up. I had a bottle of Southern Comfort, and I drank that in 20 minutes. And I just remember the clock going like this. I mean, everything was spinning. And I passed out, threw up all over the new furniture in the lounge. I blacked out. They said I found my way back to my room. I don't remember doing that at all. And so the whole seminary thing was just drinking. And halfway through the year, the dean of the college closed the door and said, either you straighten out or don't come back. And over Christmas, we went to we went to Mexico. It was a long school bus ride with cases upon cases of beer in the back of the school bus. And, I got drunk so I could get on the school bus. And I remember walking down the aisle, right? And somebody screamed my last name, smelled alcohol, and I passed out. That was it. I woke up with purple teeth from the wine a couple hours later. And, we went down to Mexico and I just drank the whole time. That was what I did. And, through high school, I enjoyed a lot of things like cross country skiing and fishing and all of that and camping. As soon as I started drinking, though, I tried to do those things. It just didn't work. And my whole drinking career was like, I'd start drinking and after like the second one, I never knew what was going to happen next. I just drank until I passed out or got the dry heaves, and that was pretty much what I did. Our thing in North Dakota and Minnesota was to get drunk and drive, which is a good thing it was not Oregon, because the roads are not straight here. Back there, you could drive off the road and just drive back on. So that's how it all went. And I just, we were talking about shame in the meeting yesterday, and there was a lot of shame. I remember laying between a couple of garages one time at 2:00 in the morning with the dry heaves again, and crying and saying the Lord's Prayer, because I knew that, and not understanding how I even got there again. I mean, that was the thing. I'd be behind a dumpster or whatever, and I'd be like, how did this shit happen? I mean, I just kept winding up in a different spot, and I couldn't get anywhere. And finally, I had a girlfriend that was we were engaged, and she went and got drunk and slept with an old boyfriend, and so the thing was, she did it while she was drinking. And one night we were arguing about it, and I was angry, and I raised my fist, and I was going to smack her. I was actually going to hit her, and that's just not like me. I've had a lot of anger problems, but not to that extent. And so I stopped mid-swing, and at the time, and I realized alcohol was what caused her to do it, but alcohol was what was screwing my life up too, and I could see it behind everything, just all at once, sort of. And I had this huge box of alcohol up in the attic in the garage, because those were all different kinds of alcohol that I didn't throw away, but I got sick on enough times that I couldn't drink them anymore. But I'm going to throw them away, right? And so, so that was when it really started to get a clue that alcohol might be the problem. And one of the guys, she and I, basically, I couldn't live there anymore, and so I went and moved into a trailer across town with a bunch of other drunks. And one night they were screaming at me, "Lance, you're a fucking alcoholic. That's your goddamn problem," all this stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah. That was when I started to get it. And so I tried to quit drinking. I made it like 30 days, and somebody showed up one night at the trailer with a case of 3-2 beer, and I said, you know what? I'm going to treatment. I'm going to drink it all, and then they're going to, I had to get drunk, and they took me to treatment, and they took me to this fancy place. It was like a 2.5-hour drive away. So, and they put me in there, and the next day they did their intake, and they said, we need a bunch of money. So I called my stepdad, and he said, no, I'm not giving you any more money for anything. Because he'd had enough. He'd send me money for books in school, and I'd drink it. And, so he'd had quite enough. He bought me a car. I sold it. because if I didn't, the guys that I owed money to were going to come after me. So anyway, I ended up in the state hospital in North Dakota, which is like the last place anybody ever really wants to go. And I remember being in that place with, you know, they were taking me in, they were doing the intake there, and it was like up on the third floor, and there was barred windows, and there was a padded cell with the door open, and the nurse had me waiting on the couch for paperwork. And I'm like, I was 22, you know. I was just, so I stayed in there for like 30 days and played a lot of cards. There wasn't any, you know, they did take us to a couple AA meetings while we were in there. And so I knew something that would work. And so when I got out of there, I started going to AA like crazy. I mean, all the time. And, you know, obviously it was traditional AA. You know, I remember they said the Lord's Prayer and all this stuff the first time. And I said, well, do I have to do that? And they said, well, don't worry about it. You know, that's just what we do here. And, you know, I didn't care. I wanted to stay sober bad enough that I didn't care what they told me to do. I was going to do it. My sponsor at the time said, stop going to church on Sunday and start coming to the Sunday morning meeting instead. And, you know, it was an Alano clubhouse. There was just all kinds of activities, dances and meetings and pancake breakfasts. And we heated the place with firewood. And so I would, you know, help chop firewood and eat donuts. And it was a good experience. But I needed to be taken in completely, just like surrounded. I don't know what had happened if I got sober today, how I would do it. There's nothing like that in this area. So I really, you know, when I sit in meetings and I see newcomers out there, I'm just like, I don't know how you do it. And Zoom is great, but I don't know how that would work on Zoom either. But it does. I've seen people stay. It happens all the time. So it does work. So yeah, I got sober. I was working in a laundry. The laundry was across the street from the Alano Club, right? And so I'd work there all day, and then I'd go over there for lunch, and they'd all give me a bad time and ask me if I was shaking farts out of sheets again today over at the laundry. And I'd be, yeah, that's what I was doing. They really just took me in. There was a payphone on the wall and 12-step calls all the time. And, you know, we'd go rescue somebody. I was on the hotline, so I would get calls all the time. And so at about 2 years of sobriety, two and a half years of sobriety, I started getting really anxious. It was like the lid started coming off. And yeah, and so I tried to go back to college, right? Because I got tested. I had an 8th grade level in math, which is, you know, my granddaughter that's 7 right now, she's better at math than I was. Anyway, so I went back to school. I got all this anxiety. I couldn't make it. I'd try to take a test in school, and I'd have a panic attack and not remember doing the test. Had a lot of shit going on. So at 3 years, I was suicidal and still sober. And then I wanted to drink or kill myself, and I was starting to make plans. And so I put myself into the VA hospital in the psych ward in Fargo, North Dakota, which is somewhere around nowhere. It's just the middle of nowhere. And they took me in. We played cards again for 2 weeks. They put me on some anxiety medication, cut me loose 2 weeks later, probably in worse condition than when I went in. But I remember the sponsor I had at the time, he says, I don't understand. He says, but I'm here for you anyway. And, you know, and he came all the time. So that was at at 3 years, Thanksgiving of the 3 years, and I started smoking cigarettes again. And then a couple years after that, I was able to quit cigarettes again, and then right after I got out of that psych ward, I went crazy again and went into a treatment center this time and did the first step and the second and the third and the third and the fourth, and just, hammered on all the steps. And I got out of there, and I felt better for a while, but I struggled with that for a lot of years and a lot of therapists. It was very difficult. At one point I was getting pretty sick. I'd throw up, I'd get anxiety, and then I'd throw up. One time I actually passed out, and I didn't understand what's going on. I had all kinds of obsessions, not just to drink, but just everything. And then I don't know how many therapists I had. I had a really good therapist in the VA after a while that was very good. He was just an intern, but man, he really helped me. And so I went for a lot of years in that kind of shape, going to traditional AA constantly. I mean, almost every day. It was very difficult to keep my head together. It just would, I'd get it together a little bit and then it'd fall apart. So I'm gonna turn my phone off. There we go. So, a couple of years ago when they shut down for COVID, about a year before that, I had gotten another therapist, and I was going to say at my wife's directions, but this was an ultimatum. Either you get some real help or you're done. I'm leaving. I can't take it anymore. And I have to say, through all of these years, decades of this, I was doing my best. I was trying so hard, but I couldn't get the right kind of help. And so I finally did. And, we did a lot of DBT therapy. The cognitive behavioral therapy I did as well, but I had done that 20 years before that, and it really did help. I made a lot of progress doing that. The problem was I could never find a therapist that would work with me on it. So, and when she gave me that ultimatum, I had been seeing that therapist for 15 years, and all he did was basically enable me. I hate to even use that word, but he did. And so I'm real, I don't have the obsessions anymore. My head's pretty clear. I have a very good life today. Nothing's perfect, hopefully, my wife and I can continue to survive this deal and make it. Nothing's a guarantee, my brother died a couple years ago. That was, the thing is, both my brother and my stepdad, I had made amends, so we had a great relationship when they died. Especially my brother. He's my youngest brother. He was always the black sheep of the family. And when I had 9 months of sobriety back in North Dakota, my dad and I put him in treatment. He came home from school one day and we said, "You're going to treatment." And so he destroyed the apartment, and then he went. I mean, he made it a year, right? And then went back out. But and I was in Germany at the time, and he had his 1-year birthday, and I had gone back out, and so I was sitting there I'd been drinking for 2 days. There was bottles all over the place. I was in the barracks, and the guys in the army had said, "We don't want you around anymore. You were the only one that's sober, and you're the only one we could count on." And it was like, I thought they were going to I was going to be part of the crowd then, but actually it went the other way around. And so I had gotten a letter from my little brother, Jim, and you know, he was like one day at a time, live and let live, and all this stuff. All the AA slogans are all over the letter, and so, you know, I knew what to do. I knew AA worked, so I went back, and, and you know, and I've been here since, but you know, it hasn't been easy, like I say. And then after a lot of years, I made amends to Jim, you know, and said, we had no business deciding you were an alcoholic for you and throwing you in treatment. He says, I said that this didn't feel right then. It doesn't feel right now. And I don't know, it works for some people. I know people personally that's a good thing. And I don't care how you get in here, if you're here, difference doesn't make, as long as you stay, or keep coming back. And the thing is, I was able to have a good relationship with Jim, and you know, the last time I saw him was really, really tough. I'd flown back to Minnesota, you know, and I was trying to leave. He knew it was the last time. I knew it was the last time. He starts bawling. And he says, "I thought we weren't going to do this shit. We had an agreement." I said, "I just can't." You know, and I had told him, you know, my mom and my other brother are very toxic, and he was concerned that his wife wouldn't get her inheritance and the insurance money and stuff, because she really needed it. And he's asking me to please look after Kelly, to, you know, take care of her, and I make sure that Mom and Tom don't go after her, which they've tried. But I'm sober. I was able to say, yeah, I'll do that, you know. So yeah, I don't know. Here we are. Um, Jim's gone. My mom and my other brother are so toxic, I can barely stand to talk to them. You know, the thing is, I've got all you people in AA, traditional, but now secular. And at some point in my sobriety, like about 2 years ago, I said, you know what? And it was right before I discovered SRG Group, which is really weird. I don't have any evidence there's a God. In fact, I have far more evidence that there isn't. And what a relief. I don't have to spend so much time on my knees. I don't have to pray all night. And I don't have to explain why Jim died. That's the stuff that happens, you know? And on top of all of that, I am now accountable for myself, because I would, something bad would happen. I'd make a mistake. I thought, that's God's will. Or what does God want? You know, I have made the dumbest damn decisions based on what I thought God's will was. And they were decisions that I knew weren't right. You know? So I never, you know, and I'd do something right, and I would say, well, that was God helping me. God helped me solve that problem. God solved that problem. I didn't do it. Well, yeah, I did. And that's the big difference for me. I don't know, you know, like I say, things are still tough once in a while. I don't have that much trouble at work, but home's a different deal, and it'll be what it'll be. I'm just I'm going to keep doing my best. So today I got 39 years, continuous 39 years. Really? Yeah, we did this together. That's the deal. I'm very, very happy to be here. I see you, Robert. Sorry, man. Well, I thought, well, it's 39 years today. I might as well be babbling away. So anyway, you know, when I speak, I get really nervous because I spend weeks and days and months figuring out what's going to happen. This way, I didn't. So besides, I spent a lot of years working on my story, I guess. So anyway, you know, I'm so grateful for you guys. Please always understand that this meeting and has been literally a lifesaver for me. So I guess that's good enough for now. Thanks.